Picture, if you will, the rolling hills of feudal Japan during the Edo period, where isolated farming communities faced a reality as unforgiving as any battlefield: survive the winter or perish. Between 1603 and 1867, Japanese farmers developed preservation techniques so effective that their methods outlasted empires and, honestly, are still whispered about in remote villages today. These weren't just survival tactics, they were a complete philosophy of self-reliance, born from necessity, refined through generations, and proven in the harshest conditions imaginable. What these farmers discovered in their fields would revolutionize how entire populations stored food through seasons of scarcity, creating a system so elegant that, well, modern preppers are rediscovering its brilliance. The Edo farmer understood something that most modern survivalists, tend to overlook. Preservation begins with understanding your enemy. Insects, moisture, and mold weren't just abstract threats. They were the difference between life and starvation. Walk into a traditional Japanese storehouse during harvest season and you'd witness a ritual that seems almost ceremonial. Freshly harvested rice would be carefully mixed with wood ash from the cooking fire, the pale grey powder coating each grain like protective armor. This wasn't superstition. The ash created an alkaline environment that suffocated weevils and their larvae, while simultaneously absorbing excess moisture that would otherwise spawn deadly mold. The farmers had discovered through trial and observation what modern chemistry would later confirm. Wood ash contains potassium carbonate, a natural desiccant and pest deterrent that keeps grain viable for years. But honestly, the true genius lay in their layered approach. After the ash treatment, grain sacks would be hung in the rafters above the cooking fire, where constant exposure to smoke created a second barrier of protection. The smoke contained compounds that acted as both fumigants and preservatives, penetrating the sacks and creating an environment hostile to any organism that threatened their food supply. Some farmers would add neem leaves, bitter, aromatic foliage that insects instinctively avoided, tucking them between layers of stored crops like sentinels standing guard. In coastal regions, dried seaweed served the same purpose, its salt content drawing moisture away, while its natural compounds repelled pests. These weren't random choices, but carefully observed solutions passed down through bloodlines, each family refining techniques that had kept their ancestors alive through famines and failed harvests. The Edo farmers faced a paradox that every survivalist eventually confronts. Abundance is temporary, but hunger is patient. Their solution was transformative in the truest sense. They didn't just store food, they changed its very nature. Through fermentation, salting, and controlled drying, they turned perishable vegetables into resources that could outlast entire seasons. Daikon radish harvested in autumn's cool embrace would be sliced thin and hung on bamboo racks, the mountain air slowly drawing out moisture until the slices became leathery strips that could last until spring planting. Cabbage and other leafy greens were packed in wooden barrels with salt and rice bran, creating an anaerobic environment where beneficial bacteria thrived, producing lactic acid that both preserved and enriched the vegetables with nutrients that prevented scurvy during the lean months. This fermentation process wasn't just preservation, it was nutritional alchemy. The farmers had stumbled upon probiotics centuries before the term existed, creating foods that were often more nutritious after fermentation than before. Fish caught during abundant runs would be salted, dried under the sun until hard as leather. then stored in cool cellars where they remained edible for months. Nothing was wasted. Even fish too small to eat were fermented into potent pastes that could flavor bland winter rice, turning subsistence into sustenance. The Edo period farmer understood that survival wasn't about hoarding plenty. It was about transforming what you had into what you needed, when you needed it most. These techniques didn't vanish with the arrival of refrigeration and industrial agriculture. Travel to rural Kenya today, and you'll find farmers still mixing ash with their stored grain, the same gesture their Japanese counterparts made 4 centuries ago. The wisdom persists because it works, requiring no electricity, no chemicals, no dependency on systems that can fail. For the modern survivalist or homesteader, these Edo period methods offer something more valuable than convenience. They offer resilience. In a world increasingly aware of supply chain fragility and the vulnerability of modern food systems, the lessons from feudal Japan's fields resonate with renewed urgency. These farmers achieved what every prepared individual seeks: true food security built on knowledge, observation, and respect for natural processes. The Fieldcraft Chronicles exists to preserve these vanishing skills, to connect the wisdom of the past with the needs of the present. If this glimpse into Japan's agricultural ingenuity has sparked your curiosity, subscribe now and join thousands who understand that the best preparation for tomorrow comes from the proven techniques of yesterday. Share this video with anyone who values self-reliance, who sees history not as something dead, but as a living manual for resilient living. The old ways aren't outdated, they're battle-tested, and they're waiting for you to rediscover them.